Welcome back to another video on the transit conversion to the BMW M47 engine. On this video I'm going to be starting to tackle this pedal box. So you saw in the last video, hopefully, I weighed out the old one, so we've lost a couple of kilograms putting in this BMW pedal box because obviously I need the hydraulic clutch. I'll show you what I've done so far because I have done a little bit off camera. So I've mounted the pedal box onto the bulkhead. That's absolutely spot on. Pretty much the same place as it was before. I'll show you the other side in a second. I've just put a support bar across here, across the original support, and bolted it up just so that we've got, if you can see, a nice firm pedal. So the box now is solid. What I need to do is remove this, which is just 2 bolts at the moment because I've taken them ones out. So I've got to undo that and there, and just fabricate and weld this on here, get rid of where I've bolted it. That was just to try it out. And then we've got the accelerator there. I have had to put a little bit of a bend into the brake just to get the brake and the clutch in the right position around the steering column, and then also have space for the accelerator. So if you have a look, sorry about this camera angle, get the wiring loom out of the way. The accelerator is going to be somewhere like that. I've got a pair of riggers on at the minute. These are size 9 riggers. We've got plenty of space there for an accelerator, and that's going to be brought more towards the driving position. So we've got space for that, space to move over to the brake, and then obviously the clutch is far enough away. So I've got all my pedals in a pretty nice position now. On the other side, so hopefully you can see here, so we've got the BMW servo one, BMW master cylinder and the tank, so I can have a feed off to the clutch master cylinder, which will be obviously on the side of the pedal box. The only thing is, because of the angle of the BMW, this is not quite level, so my level mark's going to be more like there. But that's not a massive issue. I could angle it upwards if I wanted to, but I'm not going to. And that fits in the exact position that the other one was in. So I've got just enough space there to the wiper motor. Got a nice gap at the back where it stands off, and then obviously where the vacuum hose goes on to. And actually one of the pipes actually mounts up to the correct position. The only thing is, thread on these is not quite long enough, so I am going to have to take that off and make up a piece, because the actual original is a longer thread. So I have a feeling it's not in there properly, so I will renew that. And then from this T-piece, just need to make a bend up and then straight in there. But that's really worked out better than I thought. So I've still got the 2 chambers for different front and back. I can take off all these mounts here now, so all this mount can come off. That was for the header tank. Been trying out the lights just to make sure everything was working okay. My washers weren't working properly, so I've actually put these through the ultrasonic cleaner, and they've come out really well. And I've deepened the back, or tested it anyway, I would say. So I now know which negative feed is going to go to the washers. And also, I put the hazard switch through the ultrasonic cleaner as well. So should have seen the dirt that all came out this end, absolutely filthy. So this now works bang on, bar the stereotypical slight catching. So I may need, oh no, it stopped now. I might need just a little bit of grease just in there, but other than that, everything's working spot on. So what I'm going to crack on with now is taking this off, taking that nut out, and I'm going to make a proper fixing onto this in steel. Need to take all the pats off. Need to sell that actually. I'll put that up for sale with the key, and we'll take that bracket off. Essentially, I'm trying to get rid of everything that I can that's unneeded. I'm actually going to put in as well the BMW auto dimming mirror. I'm going to put up there as well. Right, so I've got rid of the washers from there. I've put a coach bolt from the bottom underneath. I don't know if you can see it there. That'll tighten up at the top, and I've filled that in there and welded it side to side. So this now is back to solid and absolutely no movement. What I am going to do though, and I don't know why it's not been done on this truck before, is just around there I'm going to weld in a double sheet of 2mm, or a sheet of 2mm steel, and just spot weld it and stitch around it, just to give it that extra bit of pressure. Most cars are like that, to be fair, but on this they don't seem to have done it, so I will add that. You can see there where that's been welded, so that just wants stripping back and painting black. So that's ready. I need to move on to where the pedal's going to go, but as you can see, I've got lots of space now. Everything's worked really nicely. Should be quite a comfortable position. I need to put the rubber back on there actually, but again, because I have heated this up to bend it, that needs repainting as well, that brake pedal. Just been cracking on. I've got the dash covering, if you like, or the carpet covering, whatever all that is from there. Not going to be using that. Driver seats out. I'm hoping to pick up a new set of seats actually out of something newer. Fuse box is back in position. I've got the stalks back on. I'm starting to tidy up the wiring. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to connect up the battery. I'm just going to start picking out some of the wires to go up to the dash, because I'm going to have to make a custom cluster, and obviously I want the headlights to show when they're on, indicators, stuff like that. So I'm gonna have a mess around with that now. So we've got future Nick here. At this point I actually didn't do an intro, I just decided to start getting the engine in. So you can see me there trying to level the engine. I got myself an engine leveler to try and get in. The problem that you've got though with this engine and where the bulkhead sits is there's just no way of getting a strap at the back of the engine and actually feeding it in. So what I ended up doing is connecting onto the front lifting mount of the engine and sort of jacking up the back of the gearbox to try and get it over the subframe and into position. It's a bit of back and forth, but I did manage to get in. Managed to get the engine roughly in the bay. Took the gear selector off, and I had snapped it anyway, so I have actually got a new one on the dining table to my wife's happiness. Just waiting for my compressor to kick in so I can use the air jack on the back of the gearbox so I can level it off and lower it in. I had hoped to use the BMW engine mounts, but it doesn't look like there's enough space, so what I'll probably do, I'm just going to lower it down now, get it into position as to where I want to be. I might get some Land Rover V8 mounts. I've used them on an engine conversion before on a Mark II Escort, so they'll fit in sort of the same positions. Obviously I'm going to have to modify the mounts, but they're actually only bolted in anyway, so it shouldn't be too difficult. Just put a bit of an angle on them from the looks of it, but it's sat in the bay. Once it's levelled off, I think we're going to have enough space for the radiator pack, and hopefully I'll be able to get my air con pipes through in the original location, which is the biggest thing. Then that means I won't have to have special made ones. So I've got the engine in the bay, just coming up against a couple of little problems. I've got it pretty far back, I'd say that's probably acceptable. We're just catching on the bulkhead there, and on this side there is a little bit of space, and at the moment the engine is slightly towards the passenger side. If you have a look at where the mount is there, just slightly over the edge, and on this side it's maybe 1.5 inches, so maybe 40mm inside. And then also this is obviously the centre of the engine, and one thing I didn't take into account is the gearbox is central, and obviously in the truck we want the gear lever slightly over towards the driver's side, so I'm going to have to offset the gearbox slightly, and the prop is going to obviously luckily there's a joint, so that shouldn't be a problem. There's 2 joints there. But I think I'm just going to have to live with the fact that the engine is going to be ever so slightly over. Now that'll be balanced out by me sat in the driver's side anyway. That's not a massive issue. Loads of space for the BMW servo master cylinder, air cons there. I need to check that we've got enough space at the front. I can't get it any lower because the sump is about to hit the subframe and the steering rack, so that's as far as we can get over. Ideally it could do with coming towards the front by maybe 10mm, just to give that little bit of space there. So I've now been messing around with this for quite a while, to be honest with you. Engine back out and in, I'll show you where I'm up to. So the bulkhead, I've just manipulated in ever so slightly. Not done a bulkhead cut, don't need to. The engine mount is centralised. I've got it on 100mm worth of block paving on both sides. There's not enough space for the original donut, so what I'm thinking is, I'll show you on this side, I'm going to box pretty much where the bottom block is, and then get a smaller donut with a little bit of luck 50mm, which will go on the top. So I'll do a little bit of research on that in a little bit. Underneath, got clearance now to steering rack and subframe, and the back, the gearbox is just jacked up. I'll show you that in a second. So I'm thinking that's a decent position, and gap to the back relatively close as well. Don't really want to go any closer. I've got heater matrix and stuff like that to get in, and then obviously on this side it's virtually touching. At the back, underneath the gearbox, so the gearbox is in place there. As you can see, the hole is offset. May just drop the gearbox down a tiny bit at the back, just to mount it with the prop shaft. I'm gonna have to extend that shaft, but like I said before, there's a joint there, a UJ there, and there's one on the end, so that slight offset isn't going to cause any problems. I can possibly even move over the bearing, but I don't think that'll be necessary. So just going to focus on what I'm doing at the minute. You can see I've just got clearance now for the exhaust, so I'm going to keep hold of the original exhaust there if I can, at least the downpipe. And then start working on the rest. I'm going to probably now I know where it is, cut the exhaust there, just take it straight and then just out behind the cab. Might not even put a silencer on it. Been deliberating over how to do this now, because I need to move the truck forward later on tonight, obviously when I put it away, because it's still sticking out the back. So I think what I'm going to try is to sling a ratchet strap through the tunnel hole, or through the gear lever hole, sorry, the old one, and strap it internally somewhere so that I can take it back and forth. So I'll give that a go now. So now I've got the jack out of the way, I can definitely see the gearbox is sitting too high. So I'm going to have to drop the gearbox down a little bit, but that's going to have an effect on the clearance to the cross member and the steering rack, because as I showed before, that's really quite close, especially that little bit that sticks up. So I'll drop it down a little bit now and we'll see where it ends up. I've now got this in position where it's just about a pass, and I've been thinking about what I can do here. So if you have a look, I've got two 50mm blocks and I've got 4mm worth of spacers to get me the height that I need to, and then on the other side I've got the same. It still needs to come over ever so slightly, so I am going to have to manipulate the bulkhead just a touch more, or take a little bit off the corner of the airbox. But at the top, the engine's now leaning down a little bit to give a bit of clearance to the gearbox. We're about as close as I can get without cutting all the bulkhead there, which I'm not doing. I don't want to cut the bulkhead. So what I'm going to do, you can get some universal engine mounts which are like hockey pucks. So I'm going to get, I think that, I can't remember, the 20 or 30mm high. So I'm going to stack them there and put a threaded rod between, and I can use shims to get the height right. And then what I'll do afterwards, when I'm cleaning out the bay, is I'll put probably like a 50x50 box section, which I've got just at the bottom, and weld that onto the bracket. So maybe two 50x50 box sections with a 2mm plate on top. I just want to keep it as light as I can. So I could even put a piece of box section upright and just weld it round the bottom. But at least doing it that way, stacking a couple on top of each other, shimming it up with the 2mm plates I've got, 2mm washers, they're galvanised as well, I can centralise it and get everything in position, because as you can see we're still a little bit too close over there compared to this side. And then, as I showed you before, we have got clearance now from that steering hydraulic. Not a lot, but there's a little bit. I may actually even be able to bring the engine forward a little bit. I'm going to go and get the rad pack now. So we'll get the rad pack in and see what space we've got to deal with here. This is definitely not going to be as straightforward as I thought it would be. I can't put the rad pack in full, so it's taller than the slam panel and it's just far too deep. So I'm going to start stripping the plastic off the back. Intercooler pipe can move, that's not a problem. No issue sorting that. I can tighten that in there quite easily. Take that in, run closer. Header tank, I mean, at the end of the day I can move it right over there if need be. Don't have to be central, which will give me clearance. So get this box off the back, which has got like a fan, well, a buffered section. So I'll get that off now. So I was genuinely hoping the full rad pack could go on this, but it obviously won't. So So I've stripped it down now to just the condenser and the rad, and it's going to have to house somewhere like that, just over to one side. Still need to put the water feed on, and I need to make sure I can get my air con pipes on, and obviously the slam panel. And then I'm going to have to get the intercooler mounted somewhere. Now this is on a rigid pipe as well, so whether I may have to just go aftermarket on the intercooler to get away from the connectors. Might have to get an aftermarket intercooler. When I was sizing up the radiator then, sadly I noticed there was quite a lot of corrosion, so I started cutting away at this section. Unfortunately, I can't get a new one, so I'm actually going to have to build my own out of box section. So I'll take a little bit more of that out, and then I'll just use some probably inch box section, 2mm thick, just to go across the back of there, and then I'll stitch it back. I'll show you what I'm doing anyway. But yeah, I'm going to have to make that out of box section, sadly. So should help fit the radiator anyway. Alright, so I've cut all the rust out now, as you can see. What I'm going to do is put a inch box section tight in there, and then one down at the bottom as well. Block that in, but put a hole so I can get some wax oil inside there. Leave the back of here open so I can wax oil that. I just need to get my pulling machine and see where that's taken a bit of a knock. So that's been knocked in there, so I need to pull out that. As you can see, it's a bit different to that side. So I'll get probably the wedge in there and just lift it upwards and straighten that out before I do anything. So I think I'll do that in a second. Alright, with a bit of luck, we'll be able to start pulling this out. I don't know if this 3x2 got a little bit thick though. Let's see if I can just get it up a little bit. Might work. Got the first box section in now, just clamped in place, a bit difficult to do anything with, but I've cleaned up the inside of there as well as I can, enough to get a bead of weld around it anyway. And then same on this side, I'm just going to have to fill it full of wax oil afterwards. I'm going to leave it like that for tonight, crack on tomorrow, show you where I got to. I've got the two box sections in. I've just plug welded them. I will throw a couple of stitches in when I'm inside the truck. I've still got to repair all that section yet. So that's still to come, all that side. and I still need to do the closing sections, but I'll wait until the engine's out for that. So I'm going to have to make some sort of brackets for the intercooler, radiator and air conditioning. So we'll have a look at getting the rads mounted tomorrow, and possibly the slam panel, getting that mounted again. Bit of a leak on my roof. Yeah, so I'll crack on tomorrow. I've had a really nice clean up this morning before I crack on. You can see what I've done there. I will be seam welding this, I've decided. So I'm going to seam weld that and linish it back. But I've been deliberating over these engine mounts, and what I think I'm going to try is, that's how the engine mount sits. I'm wondering if I flip it upside down, you see there the nuts offset. So if I put that in like that, I should have just enough space to get it in by the time this one is moved over. So I'm going to give that a little bit of a go now. What I'll do is I'll jack the engine up and see if I can squeeze it in. It's just a trial really, just to see if it works. So I don't know if this is going to work, but it's worth a try because it's using the original mount. So I've got a tall bottle jack underneath. Just going to lift the engine up a bit. It's still on the ratchet strap on the inside for the gearbox. So that's just enough to slide, I thought it was, to slide out my blocks with my 4mm spacers. The engine mount here, I'll have to grind off this nib. So this side won't go yet. Try the other side. That's dropped down now. I think the engine's heavier on the left hand side looking from the front. So we're off now. Again, 4mm spacers. What we're thinking is something like that. I'm just going to grind off that there. New plan, 45mm block of wood. That should be just right underneath it, so I'll give that a go. It should be easier as well for mocking. Right, so the 45mm spacer is absolutely spot on. The engine's sitting nice and level. We've got the space underneath to the power steering. I don't know if you can see, hopefully you can. Pull the jack out of the way. I've got the clearance there. Might just have to manipulate a little bit of space here, but if you have a look at how it's sat now, bang on level to the bay. So all I need to do is fabricate a 45mm spacer for there and just kick it on a slight angle, which I can work out off that little gap there. So it just wants to be like maybe a 4mm angle, something like that. I've made a decision on the Airbox. I'm actually going to cut this off at the back there and just get rid of that section. It's only plastic, and this isn't going to fit in with the bulkhead either. It's just going to foul right in the way, so I'll chop that off to there. I might cut and shut it over a little bit. So as you've just seen there, I've just cut out this Airbox section. There's just no other way of doing it other than cutting the bulkhead, which I'm not going to do. I've got the original air filter. I've just cut the top off it. I'm just going to trial it in and see if I've got enough space, which I've not quite still. Oh no, we might have, yeah. So that will just be okay in that location. I think I'll just take a little bit more off it, and then what I'm going to do is panel bond that back on. So there'll be plenty of surface area. I'll just take another inch off, and then I need to order some panel bond that back on, and this is a lifetime filter anyway, so I'll give that a good clean. Taking off a little bit more of the air filter. Obviously still need to put that on the back, but space wise need that brake pipe sorting, but plenty of room now. And what I'll do is I'll modify the box that sits on here, which is this one as well, and I can still have the air intake coming from the front. And I'll try and fill the back in once the engine's out as well. So we'll just block that off completely so that this sits up to it. But I think that's looking pretty smart now. Engine's got loads of movement in it now. Got a little problem down the bottom. The exhaust there is just catching ever so slightly on the steering rack, but that can be adjusted anyway. So I'm still deliberating over how I'm actually going to do this. So I might go for a completely clean engine bay. So just the engine, have the battery inside, have the ECU housed inside and everything. I'm thinking that might be a nice way to go. If I show you the engine mounts now, so my 45mm blocks of wood are in. I need to jack it up again. We'll start building them soon. But first, I'm going to start mocking up for the radiators. So I'm going to start mocking up the rads now. The intercooler is the only thing I think is going to have to be custom. So I may have to go for a completely new intercooler, but we'll see what we can do. Just been having a little bit of a play around with it. I've put the slam panel back on, I've got the aircon condenser and the radiator in. They fit quite nicely. I could probably push the radiator back towards the engine and squeeze the intercooler in, but I think it'd be a really bad idea, so I'm not going to do that. I'm thinking I'll just put a front mount across here. I just need to make sure I get one that's wide enough. What I need to do now is just make sure that the air conditioning pipes here get to the compressor in standard form, so that I don't have to pay to have new ones made. I've got the top radiator hose, that's on in its normal position. The bottom one there, I need to cut the Jubilee clip off the original fitting and just twist that slightly so I can mount it on there, but that's not going to be a problem. I'll test this hose here to the bottom, but I can't see either of them being a problem, so I'll do that now.